Hey, everybody. Welcome to The Good Life. I'm your host, Pastor David B. Foster, and you tapped in, and B is for blessed. I'm here with a friend of mine, what I consider an authentic, true man of God. And matter of fact, he is a real deal prophet. Some people may or may not believe in prophets, but look, prophets do still exist, and he is one who hears from God. Prophet Cory Smith.
Bless
Man,
you.
how's everything going?
Man, everything is going great, man. I'm so glad to be on the show with you today, man.
No, man. We glad to have you, man. It's an honor,
Thank
man.
you
Yeah, I'm
for
looking
inviting
forward to
me.
it.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
I see
Absolutely.
you swagged out today. You got it,
Man, I'm trying to keep up with you. You the big man. You the man with the plan. If y'all don't know this man, y'all get to know him. Y'all get to know him.
No, man, that's good. That's good. So, if someone didn't know who Cory Smith was, how would you introduce yourself?
Hey, man, I'm just a fellow from South Memphis. Grew up
Yeah.
in Westwood. I'm a PK, and so as a musician, growing up as a young musician, and then just kind of just the Lord called me into the ministry, early on, but I did not know, So right now I'm doing, every bi-monthly services, breakout services, breakthrough
Okay.
services, and so most people know the musician, but most people don't know the prophet. Because I've been doing the musician thing for a long time. But
Yeah.
I've just recently stepped into the prophetic over the last few years, authentically, or responding to the voice of the Lord in that way. And so it's been a journey to shift.
Yeah.
But that's who I am, man. I'm married, and
Yeah.
been married to my wife, Kimberly Smith, for 6 years,
Yeah,
and so
yeah.
we just doing our thing, man. And so I'm just finding my way in this prophetic journey. Yeah,
No,
yeah,
that's it. No, that's odd you say that because I met you as a prophet.
Yep.
And then I found out I'm like, oh, he can play too. It was the opposite for me.
wow,
Yeah, and so I guess that's weird for me to hear that.
Yeah.
But most people know you as a musician
yep,
rather than a prophet.
yep,
But since we're talking about that, I know you were schooled under the tutelage
yep,
of one of the greatest prophets.
Absolutely.
That you and I know, and I wish the world would have got to know him,
Man.
And Prophet James Jones, man, and just how he was just really eagle eye. Yeah. How did you and Prophet Jones come to meet?
man. When I think about that, we actually met.
Yeah.
Oh God, it had to been around 2009 or 10.
Okay.
When I met Prophet Jones, and I was at that time going to what we call the School of the Prophets here in Memphis, and
yeah.
they were having that over in South Haven, and and somebody invited me to go to this particular school, and I went for a few weeks, and then probably about that second, third week after being there was a prophet there
Yeah.
that I did not know, I'd never heard of.
Yeah.
And we were doing prophetic activations, and he came in my circle.
Yeah.
And he began to prophesy to me.
Yeah.
And man, he prophesied so accurately that it blew my mind.
Yeah.
Literally blew my mind to the point where, and I tell people this story all the time, and I literally ran out of the building because I had never had nobody prophesy to me that accurately, and
Right.
like the word of knowledge was very strong.
Yeah.
And from that moment until he passed,
Yeah.
he was in my life, and so that's how we met. And
Yeah.
he became a mentor to me. He
Right.
became like a spiritual father to me.
Yeah.
And so that's how my journey began, realistically, in the prophetic.
Yeah.
Because he was the one that kind of gave me language for it,
Yeah,
for
that's
something
good.
that I did not understand. So
good.
he was, and I hated, like you said, that so many people did not get to experience his ministry because he kind of flew under the radar for
Right,
a long
for a long
time.
time. Yeah.
But if you ever got on the phone with him,
Man,
or you was in those little small settings with him, you knew
Yeah.
that you were dealing with a bona fide
Man, a bona fide.
prophet that
Yeah,
literally
yeah.
could prophesy so accurately. He could see. He definitely was eagle eye. So
Yeah.
that's how our meeting came about.
Came about. Yeah,
Yeah.
good. Yeah. So you said now, like I said, he activated you and really woke some things up.
Yep.
Did you have any prophetic visitations as a child or anything that you remember that kind of signal? You knew you may have been a prophet or what?
Yeah, I think there were some things there. I had definitely had an encounter. I think about one, and maybe I had to been maybe 13 or 14 when I kind of had that initial encounter, visitation from the Lord, where the Lord really knocked me out under the power of God, and I was literally thrown to the floor by the power of God. It was in a powerful service that was happening in my father's church in South Memphis. And the power of the Lord had come on me so strong. And I remember just being slain. That's what they call slain, laid out in the spirit. And the Lord began to deal with me very strongly at that point. And I still did not have language for it because I grew up in a Baptist church. In a Baptist church, I mean, nothing against Baptist churches, but it's just something we didn't talk about, prophets and fivefold ministry. And so I just remember having that encounter, and the Lord began to deal with me very strongly. And that's when it kind of awakened those spiritual gifts on the inside of me. I always saw things and kind of knew things, but I did not know it was quote unquote the prophetic. So I think that was the initial encounter, but there were other encounters that I had
later on.
that led up to more walking into the office of the prophet.
And so you saying like you recently kind of really walked into it and embraced it. What kind of led to that?
I think the more recent thing, it recently, probably within the last 4 or 5 years. Well, I go back to even back to 2000 and maybe 11. No, I did not meet Prophet Jones. Let me rewind. I met him maybe in 2000. Let me rewind,
that
people.
Okay.
So for those of you that's listening. Charge that to my head. That was probably around 2000. And he then affirmed me publicly. Around 2010, I was staying in Atlanta at the time, and I think he was staying in Kentucky. And I went down to Kentucky, and there was some other spiritual sons and daughters there, and he laid hands on all of us and affirmed us at that point. But it was still not fully. Understanding everything that happened, but it later on happened that when I was under, I'll mention his name, Apostle Tony Wade, Divine Life Church. He publicly affirmed me as a prophet here in the city.
So he did it well.
Yeah,
that's good.
He did as well.
Okay. Yeah. So like I said, we live in a time where people are very curious. We got internet, Google, all of these things. YouTube, and so if a person is saying like, well, a fortune teller told me this, why do I need a prophet, or why should I seek out a prophet? What would you think? What would you say to that person?
Well, I think we have to be so careful in this hour with social media and YouTube and I heard something, and I won't take the credit for it, but we have to be careful, because in times of desperation, it can lower your discernment.
Wow, that's good.
And so when you start to seek out things out of a desperate place, you can miss God. And I'm not saying desperation is not real. Desperation is real, but when your desperation is out of control and you just start seeking out things, you may run across a witch. You may run across, a fortune teller or a soothsayer. And so I think we need to know the difference in terms of what we're dealing with. And so, a true prophet is not going to lead you away from God.
That's good.
A real prophet is going to steer you back to God.
That's good.
They're not going to try to manipulate you. They're not going to try to get money out of you just to give you a word of the Lord. The heart and the character of a true prophet is going to lead you back to Him.
That's good.
And not to themselves.
That's good.
And so I think that's one of the things we have to be mindful of when we're trying to discern or decipher whether we're dealing with somebody authentic or somebody who is a true man or woman of God.
Right. No, that's good. That's very important that you say that, like I said, because people are seeking, like I said, and desperation is That's fine. But like I said, it's all about your heart,
Right.
and what you're really seeking after. Because you can seek after a prophet for the wrong reason,
Absolutely.
and a lot of people do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and so you have that, and then you have these instances where people are they, for lack of a better word, they're hurt or they experience some type of trauma.
Yep.
In the church, and so now they're saying all prophets are bad.
Yep.
Yeah. What would you say to that? How would you speak to a person that may have had a bad experience, with the prophetic in church?
Yeah.
What would you say to that person?
Well, a person that's had a bad experience, and I deal with them all the time. I
Okay.
deal with a lot of people that come across my path. They've been hurt, they've been wounded in church, they've been taken advantage of, and a lot of them are broken. Man, they are, and they don't really want to have anything to do with the church, And part of me really understands that,
Yeah.
But what I would tell them is to really, begin to seek God.
Yeah. Right.
Develop a personal relationship, which is personal, which is important that
Yeah.
you develop that personal relationship with the Father, and not just in a person or a
Right.
man, because sometimes we can get consumed with looking at a man or a person.
Right.
And I still feel like there's a need for prophets and prophetic voices, but sometimes we put too much attention on a man instead of the foundation being built in Christ.
That's good.
And so I think if once you get that solidified,
Right.
then I think you'll be okay.
Right.
And then you can begin to heal
Right.
from what has happened to you. And then there's a lot of that happening now. A lot of people, like I said before, are being taken advantage of, man. And it's very easy now for that to happen.
Yeah,
very,
yeah.
very easy. So
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is though? Like,
I think people are naive. I think people are gullible. I think people are overly desperate.
Yeah.
I think there's a lack of teaching
That's good.
around the prophetic and what that looks like, what the word says about what a prophet should look like.
Right.
And so I think there's just a misunderstanding.
Right.
And I think everybody wants to be in the know. Everybody wants to be informed. Everybody wants to know what's happening next.
Yeah.
So, you just start seeking out things.
Yeah.
And that can get you in a lot of trouble.
Right.
Sometimes that you can't not get yourself out of. Because sometimes people think, oh, it's an innocent thing until other things start spiraling out of control in your life.
Right.
And so I think we have to be careful, and I think the church needs to get back to teaching how to identify certain things, get back to the word.
Right.
That's really what I believe. Because again, just because a person is prophesying, they can be very accurate.
Right.
They can tell you things that happen in your past, present, and future.
Right.
But if the heart of that prophet and the character of that prophet does not align with the word of God, you need to be a fruit inspector. You need to see what the fruit is.
Yeah, that's good.
And if their fruit does not align with the word, then you need to be cautious of that particular voice that you're listening to.
No, that's good. That made me think about it's Matthew. What's that? Matthew 5. It says that beware the false prophets. And then I think that verse 9 talks about the fruit.
Yep.
And so, so you're saying one of the ways that we can identify a prophet or a true prophet of God is by his fruit.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit more. Like, what should a person look for?
Well, I think a person should look for, again, I just reiterate the heart of that prophet.
Yeah.
Because, sometimes it's not with the naked eye. You cannot discern. You won't be able to know,
right.
unless you have discernment.
Yeah.
And what that looks like. And so sometimes if you don't know what it looks like, you can't discern it properly.
Right.
And so I think we need to be able to, again, look at the character.
Right.
Is this person manipulating me out of my money?
Right.
Because most of the time, that's going to be there's always going to be a motive.
Right.
There's always going to be an agenda.
Okay.
Or something happening.
Yeah.
with that particular prophet. And so they'll tell you everything you want to know, but you better trust at the end, they're going to tell you something. Because think about the girl over in Acts 16 that had the spirit of divination.
Right.
She was following Paul,
Yeah.
you know, for 3 or 4 days.
Right.
She was following him. And at that point, he didn't even realize it until about that third day, something began to vex his spirit.
Yeah.
And he says, And he told the spirit to come out of the girl, but she was bringing her masters much gain.
Yeah, that's right.
And so, she was speaking the truth, and she was saying, these are the men of the Most High.
Right.
And she was bringing gain to her masters, but that was the end goal.
Right.
The fortune telling. She's
good.
speaking true.
Yeah.
But the end goal was, we're going to manipulate you all.
Yeah.
Good. Because a lot of prophets will move in miracles, signs, and wonders, and we can't get consumed with that.
Right,
I believe true prophets move in miracles, signs, and wonders. I absolutely believe in that.
Right.
But sometimes that'll be the telltale sign. If they're doing that and there is no real fruit,
right,
or they're leading you to themselves, that's going to be a telltale sign that you're dealing with probably a false prophet.
False prophet. That's good. That's good. I think that it's interesting that the word says that a false prophet.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That they are a prophet.
They are a prophet.
Yeah, but it's a false prophet.
It's a false prophet.
Yeah. I think that's a lot of people gloss over that, miss that, the semantics of it. But I always look at that and I said, now that they are a prophet.
Yep.
But it's a false prophet.
That's right.
A false prophet. Yeah.
They're a false prophet.
Yeah, that's good. And so now you remember when Saul had got around the prophets.
Yeah.
And he started prophesying, right? But the Bible never called Saul a prophet, right? How can, some people who may be able to prophesy, or Holy Spirit may fall on them and they may prophesy, what's a way for a person to realize that, hey, I may be operating a gift, but I'm not necessarily operating the office?
I think one of the things with those that operate in the gift versus the office is the gift is really sometimes it's more compartmentalized or more individual, as where the office is more of an authoritative position, a leadership position, the influence that you carry. It is the character that by which you live, because it's not just so much as, I think people get it, have this misconception that prophets or prophet just only prophesies. But no, it's not just that. It's how you live. It's how you conduct yourself. It's all of that. It's not a one-time thing. I prophesied, in a few services and now I'm a prophet. No, it don't start like that. I think it's just how the Lord deals with you. And so, believe it or not, a lot of prophets don't prophesy as much as people probably think that they do. Not one that stands in the office, because sometimes the Lord will call you into a time of He will exclude. He will pull you away. And sometimes the prophets of old, they did not come out of the chambers until they had the word of the Lord, and so they had to stay in, let God speak. Then they came out and spoke. And so now in the New Testament, the prophets are called to the church. And so that is one of the signs as well, is that these prophets that are lone rangers and want to be off in the island by themselves, that is not the New Testament prophet. And so we have to be careful of these ones that just kind of want to be off to themselves, and isolated, and they don't want to have anything. And I'm not talking about just a local church. I'm talking about the universal church as a whole. Yeah.
So somebody that's really they're not submitted to anybody. That's one of the things to look for in a person who's like really trying to build their own personal ministry rather than putting Jesus out. That's something that people could look, should look for.
Absolutely. I think people should definitely look to those things, because we have a lot of unsubmitted people right now. And I'm not saying people don't go through seasons where you may be in transition. There are transitional seasons where people go through, and they're or whatever they're trying to find who they need to submit to,
Right.
or whatever. But these ones that won't submit to anybody,
Right.
ever.
Yeah.
We can't track you to any degree. We
Right.
can't track nothing about
Right.
your life. That's a red flag.
Yeah.
And I think we should be alarmed when we start seeing like we can't track anything. Even when you look at Paul and Timothy,
Right.
you could track Timothy.
Yeah.
Because of Paul. You could track Elisha because of Elijah.
Right.
And so there's a track record that we need to be, or some type of pattern
Yeah.
that we should be able to connect you to.
Right.
Even if you're in a season of transition.
Yeah. You got to be able to find you somewhere.
Yep. Got to find you somewhere. Who you submitted to
at some point in your life.
At some point in your life, in some walk, where you just showed up and we don't know where you came from, and so we supposed to just trust you. No, it don't work like that. You know. And so I think, and so you have those now that are too trusting, and then you have those that don't trust at all.
That's true. Yeah.
And so you have this great divide right now in the body of Christ, and there's a lot happening right now in the body of Christ.
Yeah.
Where everybody is non-trusting.
Yeah.
And then you got everybody that's too trusting.
Yeah.
And so we got to be able to find the balance.
Right.
Find the balance.
I think that's important too of the fivefold ministry.
Yeah.
Working together. Then pastors being able to, even though, like David, David, he went to the altar and he put on the ephod.
Yep.
And, he made sacrifices, but he still had prophets around him, that he trusted. And so I think that's another thing that pastors really need to do and really should do more of.
Yeah.
Even if they have the gift of prophecy, or the office of a prophet, they should still have other prophets and the, fivefold gifts to come in to build it up. So, why do you think that a lot of pastors don't do that though?
I think a lot of pastors, either there's a we don't believe in that,
right,
or there's a distrust, because prophets have been deemed as being wild,
reckless.
Reckless. They tear your church up. Unsubmitting, rebellious. We've been, labeled as all of it.
Right.
Sometimes when the Lord starts revealing things and that pastor does not want to receive, because that pastor may say, "Well, I'm the hierarchy of this house, and I'm not going to listen to you." It gets start getting trouble. So now the prophet is unsettled, and so it keeps this prophet jumping from place to place. But I think it's such a challenge in the churches right now, because we've not learned how to work together. We're fighting against each other.
That's good,
sometimes the apostolic can be a bit rigid. Sometimes the prophetic can be too hyper. And so there has to be a balance in how we work together as a community in the church and getting on the same page. But I think there's just a fear of losing control as a pastor to those that sit in your church, because no pastor wants to feel like they losing.
That's true.
To listening to another voice, and they don't want other people in their church listening to a prophet before they listen to their voice. So they'll just throw the baby out with the bathwater, So it's just like, we're not gonna have it at all.
No prophet at all.
No prophet at all. Or they want it, and even if they invite them, sometimes if you're not careful, you'll have to clean your church up after you invite certain prophets.
Yeah, that's true.
So you got to be careful who you invite to your church.
Right.
You need to do a little homework on people.
Yeah.
If the Lord doesn't tell you specifically to invite, do your homework before you, just start inviting people to your church.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's good though. Yeah. And like I said, definitely need more teaching, period.
Yep.
Yeah, I think if pastors taught on the prophetic, or the fivefold, the people can have a better understanding. That way they wouldn't be so easily moved, if a prophet did come in.
Yep.
I think, we don't have a lot of word-based churches.
Right.
And so a lot of these churches are easily shifted because, they're not in a foundation they're built on.
Yep.
Yeah, and so that's That's good that you said that though.
Yeah, I think we need to just have fivefold ministry back in operation. I think we need all 5 of the gifts
right,
operating in the church.
right,
At some point,
right,
they all need to be on display.
right, right.
At some point, to have a healthy church that's flourishing.
That's good.
So this is, if all churches could get on that, then and that's Bible. That's Bible. That's not unbiblical, but because of our teaching and how most of us been raised or trained, or well, they didn't teach us that. There's a fear. There's a fear and there's a pushback, and so a lot of leaders are just not open to that ideology.
Right. No, that's true. Yeah, I think it's just like pastor and that's it.
That's it.
Or the Baptist church, the deacon board.
Yeah, the deacon board run the whole church, man.
Church. Yeah.
And we've seen that too. I've seen that as well, man. So I think it's just, if we get back to Bible, and no man knows it all.
Right.
We should be forever learning and growing.
Right.
But if we get back to doing how God set it up,
right.
I think we'll be better.
Right.
We'll see a better church.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I know, so much is, like I said, happening within the body of Christ.
Yeah.
A few, scandals take place, it happen. But, that's going to happen. It happened in the Bible. But why do you think that has such a trickle-down effect? Like, say, especially when somebody big falls into, or has a scandal, why do you think that kind of trickles down into the body?
Well, I think one of the biggest things for me, and one of the things a lot of real prophets detest, is idolatry. I think we need to not idolize people or positions so much.
That's good.
We got confidence in the God that's using you.
Yeah.
But I will never idolize you. And I've been through that. I used to, and I won't call that particular person's name, but there was a person that I loved dearly in ministry. Yeah. And I idolized this person. They could do no wrong. They could do no wrong, and they were one of the greatest prophets of their time.
Right.
I was following their ministry, had all their tapes, and I had everything. And would literally fight you if you said something wrong about that. No, I really would. I really would. True story. I would fight you if you talked about this particular person. Yeah. And then this person failed. Man, and it messed me up so bad. Yeah. It messed me up so bad because I was like, how? Yeah. And there were people telling me, all along, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no, you just don't like them. Yeah. And that person ended up falling, man. And it hurt me so bad. But the thing about me, God can restore. Right, because the word says, you which are spiritual, restore such a one in the spirit of meekness and love. Right. And so I think, we don't see that restoration piece, and I may be kind of deviating, but I think when they fall, that's just, it's like, it just trickles down. Right. And the whole church is in shambles. Like, oh my God, did y'all see so-and-so? You just messed up. And then, you got people walking away from church and saying, this is why I don't go to church now. Right. And it just creates so many things. But I'm like, well, if you didn't put them where they shouldn't have been, you would be unshakable. Right. Now when I see people fall, man, I'm not shaken. I'm not shaken by it because men are. I know we are flawed. Yeah, we flawed. Yeah, we flawed as human beings.
That's true.
And people are susceptible to things, and people can fall. And I'm not saying people can't live holy. I don't want to. Give that off, because the word says now unto him that is able to keep us from falling. Right. But people are human, man. And people make mistakes. Definitely. And we hate to see that now, but it happens, you know. And so I think God sometimes allows these things to really show us. Right. Don't idolize a man.
Yeah. God is there out down quick. Yeah, we know he will.
Yeah, he'll pull it down now. And I believe God is not interested in really exposing people.
No, he's not. He's not.
That's a last resort.
Yeah.
If God exposes you, it is an act of mercy, really, to save you. You know what I mean?
Good.
So it's not that God is interested in exposing so everybody can laugh
Right.
at your calamity.
Right. No, that's good.
So it's an act of mercy and really show us, like, hey, be careful because you could be next.
Yeah, that's true.
You know
that's
what I mean?
That's good. That's good. Yeah, no, I think that's good. Like I said, we could follow and just, I mean, something simple like with happened with Marvin Sapp, right?
Yeah.
You know, just recently, but it was an old clip. You know, I was talking to my wife about it. I was telling her about it. I was like, you know, I wanted to see more pastors and leaders in the body come to his defense.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because, you know, nobody, you know, church people know the context of church. It's like, I'm not going to speak on something that happens in the surgery room, you know what I'm saying, just because it's clipped on social media. And so I want, but she, you know, she said John Hannah did, but I wanted to see more leaders come up. And so why do you think when a brother or sister falls in more of you know, the ecclesia, as we call it, or the body, you know, why don't we see more people come forward?
Man, I think it's all of it is a lot of hidden agenda, and I think the next man is looking for a come up. So, you know, if one man falls, there's an opportunity for me to come up.
Wow.
So if I spend my time trying to tear you down,
right.
then I'm coming up.
Yeah.
And so we see that a lot.
Yeah.
That everybody jumps on a bandwagon.
Right.
Nobody's here to really, you know, you didn't watch the whole video, first of all.
Right.
You saw a little piece. These sound bites are out of control, man.
Right.
You know, and that's you know, that's like, and my thing is, this type of offering been happening in church since you was a baby, since you were 2 and 3 years old. That ain't nothing different. They've been asking for offering.
$40, right? $20.
It just takes one person of influence to post it, and the whole church goes wild. And I'm like, y'all, this been happening forever.
It's been happening.
So I don't, honestly, in my opinion, you know, and people may get mad at me, I'm just like, it's nothing new.
Right.
Whether you agree with how he raised the offering or not.
That's right.
It's nothing new. They've been doing that in you know, the Grand Old Churches and all the apostolic. They've been doing this.
Right.
But I think it's an opportunity for the next man to come up. So they got to tear you down.
Right. Yeah.
So they can come up and so everybody can see them now.
Right.
You know?
No, that's true. Yeah, and people so quick to run with things without investigating.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. And that's kind of go back to really the prophetic. Think about it. People don't investigate the prophetic.
They don't.
You know what I'm saying? And that's kind of what you said earlier. You know.
Yep.
You know, we need to know your track record. We need to know your lineage.
Yep.
You know, but people don't investigate the prophetic. They say, "Ooh, he told me, you know, my address." And I heard the OG prophet said, "Don't you know where you live at?
Don't you know where you live at, bro?" Man, you know. And I tell people, you know, those things can happen, but you can't get so caught up in that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That you lose, because that ain't even prophecy.
Yeah, really not.
That's word of knowledge.
Yeah, that's true.
You
that's
know,
good.
The prophecy is what they tell you after the word of knowledge.
Yeah.
What is to come?
Yeah.
What's the future?
Right.
What is God saying for my future? And what's the plans of God for my life?
Good. Yeah,
and so I think
go ahead, break that down with word of knowledge and word of wisdom.
I think
break that down for a little bit.
Word of knowledge, you know, that really talks about what may currently be going on with you.
Right.
Something that you can say, oh, yeah, that's my address.
Right.
That's this or that's happening there. And oftentimes those word of knowledge is oftentimes to grab your attention. It'll grab your attention and it prepares you for the prophecy. The word of wisdom gives direction.
Right.
It gives clarity for something. You may be in a valley. You may be in a place of where you can't decide.
Yeah.
And that prophetic word may say, or word of wisdom may say, I hear the Lord saying, do this as it relates to this, as it relates to your finances.
That's good. Yeah.
That prophecy may be telling you in the next 5 years, I see the Lord, you're going to become a millionaire.
Right.
You may be broke.
Yeah.
You may not have 2 nickels to rub together right now, and you don't understand. But I think that is the phenomenal thing about the power of prophecy.
Yeah.
It can speak to something in a dry situation,
Right.
and it lives.
Right.
The real prophet can prophesy to dead things and cause them to live.
That's good. That's it. That's it.
And so
Yeah.
the true prophet has the ability
Yeah.
to have a conversation with God,
Yeah.
and God shift everything in your life
Wow. That's powerful.
because there's life in the mouth of a true prophet.
That's it. That's good.
Yep.
That's good. No, I love that. Yeah. God not, he just not going to just give that office to everyone. That's why I often teach people,
Yep.
due to the power of it.
Yep.
Like I said, prophet can shift. We see in the Bible the economy.
Yep.
He can, shift, like I said, politics.
Yep.
And so if everybody had that gift,
Man, if everybody, and we're all different.
Right,
There are different types of prophets.
Right.
We don't all move the same. We don't all have the same
prophetic
gifts
Yeah,
in terms of, we all may be prophets,
right.
but we all may move different. God may have you in government.
Right, that's true.
God may have me just to the local church.
Right.
And God may have someone over here that prophesies to the nations.
Right.
He may have you moving very differently.
Right.
And so we can't get locked into, well, you don't do it like me.
That's good.
Or you don't do it like me. So that means you're not a prophet.
You're not a prophet, right.
No, we, like you just said, we see different types of prophets
Right.
That prophesied to the economy. We see how Joshua spoke and caused the sun to stand still.
Yeah.
And so there are different types of prophets.
Good.
You have those prophets that are just going to give you the correction.
Yeah.
They only going to correct.
Yeah.
They're not going to do nothing else.
Right.
They coming with the word of the Lord.
Yeah.
Get your house in order, you're going to die. And so you have so many different types of prophets.
Yeah.
And so I don't really do a lot of fussing and fighting with people. I just like, if I can see the fruit, I'm not going to trip about how you execute what God has called you into.
Good. That's good.
So if you move in economics, you move in finances, like yourself, God really uses you heavily in economics and kingdom finances.
Right.
Move in that sphere, God.
Right,
Man, God has called you to that.
Yeah.
And God calls you to speak to wealth and money in a way that I don't have a language for.
Yeah.
So that I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I wish we could all come together in unity.
Yeah. That's good.
And cause things to really happen.
Yeah. No, that's good. I love it, man. I love it. Yeah. So, anything you see in the body of Christ, or God is, shifting us, or that we should know, anything God been speaking to you about?
I believe right now we just need to be prepared for what's to come. I believe there is a lot of things that are coming in terms of turbulence in the earth.
Yeah.
All while God is great and he's still going to be God. I believe we need to prepare. I've seen, different types of other pandemics coming that may be heading our way. I do see some levels of judgment coming. I do. I know people may not agree, but
Right.
I'm sensing it in my spirit very strongly. And so I think we as a church need to get back to praying.
Yeah.
And do what the word says. If my people would humble themselves and pray, turn from their wicked ways, and do that, I think we could change the trajectory of what's about to come.
Right.
But God is going to always provide for his people.
Yeah, definitely.
Even in a time of famine.
Yeah.
God has already solidified a Goshen for us.
Yeah, that's good.
Where he's going to protect his own.
Yeah.
But that don't mean we won't feel the brunt of it when it hits.
Right.
But I believe it's getting ready to be one of the most glorious times, because anytime we're on the cusp of judgment, that means there is an impending revival.
Good.
So
yes,
I do see a merging of revival and healing and restoration coming.
That's good. That's good.
For our nation.
No, that's good. Yeah, we need it. You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody, we're not exempt. And like I said, I think we all could, benefit from that.
Yep.
Revival.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Especially personal revival, and then a corporate revival.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. That's good, man. Well, look, I appreciate you coming out, Prophet. You know, I'm definitely,
Absolutely, man.
you know, I believe in you, believe in your ministry.
Thank you.
Definitely support you, and like I said, we appreciate you coming out. Look forward to you doing more things and spreading your wings and doing what the Lord called you to do, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I appreciate you,
Yeah.
Prophet David Foster, Apostle David Foster, for having me
Yeah.
on the Good Life podcast.
That's it, man. And your wife too, man. Great woman of God.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, great woman of God. I'm glad she came into your life.
Yep, I'm glad she came into my life too,
yeah,
man.
yeah,
It done changed
yeah.
my life in a way that I cannot even articulate.
Man, look, if they only they knew.
If they only knew, there's a story. That's for another podcast, though. That's for another one.
That's it, man. We appreciate you again, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So look, everyone, make sure you like, share, and most important, subscribe here to the Good Life Podcast. Make sure you check out all our phenomenal guests and my brother, Prophet Cory Smith. Make sure you follow him as well. And look, remember, there's nothing like living a good life. We'll see y'all soon.